Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video from the Power Bomb Project. I am one of your hosts, Daniel, joined by my other two hosts.
It's Berman.
And Chris.
So, this is going to be a longer video. Today, we're going to be talking about the Phase 4 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have already talked about the first three phases on this channel, and we're probably going to run into more disagreements than usual about some of the series and movies. But since there's so much to review here, we are going to be doing rapid reviews of the series, which means we'll only give like a sentence or two and then our rating. But yeah, the movies we're going to go more in depth for. Originally, this was going to be two separate videos, but we decided to just kind of combine it all into one video. So if you've seen the TV series, then you can simply watch our reviews right here, because we're not going to be spoiler free. We are going to be spoiling pretty much everything involved with some of this stuff. The only two things we are not reviewing from this phase is She-Hulk and Miss Marvel. So, for any fans of those two shows, I guess go watch something else if you're looking for reviews of those shows. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so, rapid reviews for the series. Let's start. WandaVision. I thought it was a nice little sitcom style, with the first few episodes, and it showed some clues that it's not real. The world of, Westville or whatever it was, it's not really what it seems, and my favorite character is Vision. The actors and actresses do a great job of, acting in all this. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany especially steal the show. As it is their show, it makes the most sense. I will say, though, the final episode does get a little MCU'd up, meaning that it just feels like a very cliche good guy beats bad guy ending. I like White Vision and regular Vision in the library, but the fireball battle between Wanda and the evil witch Agatha just was anticlimactic, and it felt like it all was going to set up for Mephisto, but it didn't. Overall, 7 out of 10. Next, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Nice little origin story for Sam. It also gave some nice, cool therapy and character development for Bucky, but yeah, nothing too crazy. John Walker was an interesting character as well. Overall, 7 out of 10. Next, Loki. I thought it was a very good show, and I really liked all the multiverse stuff involved here. Sometimes some sort of shows and whatnot decide to get a little too geeky with it, and I don't really appreciate that, but Loki doesn't necessarily do that for me. I will say there are a bunch of cool things, like the episode where Loki is battling all of each other, and there's 20 different Lokis. There's the introduction of Kang the Conqueror, who's going to be the big bad of not only this phase but phase 5 and 6, so that's going to be pretty great. And I feel like it did a pretty good job of setting that up. Overall, 7.5. Next, What If. It's cool. It's decent for what it is. I thought the Evil Doctor Strange episode was great. I thought the Zombies episode was stupid as hell. Not every episode hit, but the episodes that did hit, they were pretty solid. So overall, 6 out of 10. Hawkeye, mediocre show. And the utilization of Black Widow's sister, Yelena, was very disappointing. So was the utilization of Kingpin and many others. Overall, the series was just bland, boring, and didn't need to run for 5 hours. This could have easily been done and accomplished in 2 hours or less. 4 out of 10. Next, Moon Knight. I'd say so far is the best Disney Plus series so far, and I really like what it had to offer. Oscar Isaac kills it, and a lot of people may argue about the borderline split personality disorder, like how it might not really represent that to its fullest extent. But I don't think that's really the intention. I think this is all just meant for entertainment purposes, and it's meant to kind of all just tell a story. So I don't think we should be looking into those kind of things too deeply here. But yeah, Mark, Steve, all those characters were fun. So season 2 should be fun as well. 7.5 out of 10. Werewolf by Night special, a simple 50-minute Halloween special that was fun. Nothing too crazy here. 7 out of 10. Guardians Christmas special, overall fun. Nothing too crazy. Also a 7 out of 10. Overall, most of the series you get are pretty solid, but nothing too crazy. Nothing above a 7.5. But you'll get some good stuff here. So that's all I really have to say about the series. I'm going to let Berman throw his rapid reviews in.
Yeah. So first, WandaVision, I did like it. It was not that bad. It was not interested that about it, but it was curious to kind of Wanda feels about Vision's death and kind of stuff like that. Well, and then reanimation. But I do love how they did the sitcom stuff. It was a big fun thing to see them. The fight, it was kind of anticlimactic what Danny was talking about. Yeah, it is. But I think it was okay. It was fun. Not my favorite out of anything, but it was still up there as a good show to watch. Definitely, I say seven. Yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. Falcon and Winter Soldier, to me, probably one of my top three favorite series for Marvel right now. Probably number two, I would say. I love it. To me, I just love the political aspect where, and I just because I love this quote is my favorite quote out of everything. He says, the politician says, "You don't understand how hard it is to be like us," and Falcon says, "I don't understand a black man wearing the stars and stripes. What do I not understand?" It is an amazing quote. I love the show. It's probably I love the main villain. It was perfect. It made sense where the Flag Smashers have made complete sense. I loved it. I'm gonna give this an 8.5. Loki, I was never a big fan of it because I just felt it was very slow, very boring sometimes, and I just never was happy about it. I was happy to see Kang the Conqueror, one of my favorite. All right, so What If was a good. It was pretty fun. There's only two really very forgettable crap, but the zombie one was probably one of my all-time favorites. I love it. It was great to see the kind of zombie aspect of it, and the comic books where Chris knows a little bit more about them, know a little bit too, but the comic book aspect of the zombies were great. I can't wait to see more of the zombies. Maybe make our own series of zombies. I can't wait to see that. The Ultron one probably was my favorite episode, and a lot of the other episodes are pretty good too. I gotta give this product for me a 7 myself. Hawkeye is probably number 3 out of my favorite series that they have. I love how they did this with the Kate Bishop storyline with Hawkeye stuff. And people think, oh yeah, Hawkeye's a secondary character. Yes, it's probably true, but still, I think that he did most of the work in this whole thing. And another complaint, people say, oh, they misuse Kingpin and the other characters. Well, Kingpin, if you want to watch Kingpin, watch Daredevil. Daredevil and Kingpin are the best combination in that show. I would say of that, but if you don't care, just watch that. But I think Hawkeye was great. I think the action scene with the Christmas tree with the frozen ice rink was amazing. Great. I love bow and arrows in general, so can't wait. I love that stuff. So definitely for me, an 8.5. Moon Knight, number one out of everything. One of my favorites of all time of the series is they did a great job with how Moon Knight looks, the personalities of all three Moon Knight, well, two Moon Knights. We saw third at the end with Jake Locke. But it was great to see how both can change the Moon Knight aspect, the gods representation. I love the myths of any type of gods, Greek, Egyptian, anything. I love that stuff, and I've been a big fan of it so far. So I can't wait to see new season come out. Definitely, I'm gonna give this a 9.5. And for Werewolf by Night, this is probably my favorite special out of everything. I love the horror stuff, and they did a great job making these work. Kind of setting up for the Halloween commandos, probably popping up in next Halloween. I can't wait to see that. You see Man Thing, you see the werewolf, and you see Eliza Bloodstone. It's great. You see the blood in nice black and white, perfect. Seeing it, definitely for me an 8. Christmas special, I liked it. The music was amazing, and Kevin Bacon singing some of the music was very fun to watch. There's some really good music that they just come up with right on the spot, and I think that's amazing how they did this and the relationship with what's it called, Star Lord. That was very humble, very likable. It was a very nice thing for Christmas to put up there. Christmas. So for me, definitely, I say 7.5 for me. That's all I have to say about this. Probably out of everyone, definitely Moon Knight, Hawkeye, and Falcon, Winter Soldier are my favorites. And Chris, you
And
too.
same here. So, anyways, WandaVision was definitely good for what it was. The ending between Agatha and Wanda was very disappointing. I mean, the highlight of the show was definitely mostly Vision. He carried the show for most of the part. Some of the jokes weren't hitting that great, but for the most part, it was decent. So I'll just give it a 7. And then for the Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'll give it an 8. There's many things to like, especially with the actions of the U.S. agent, Zemo stealing the show, and just kind of the struggle what Sam was going through to become the next Captain America. So it's an 8. Loki, however, most people disagree with me. I didn't really enjoy it too much, just the fact of Sylvia, which she was like one of the main characters, and I guess sort of the main
Sylvie,
antagonist.
my friend.
Sylvie, thank you. She was the main antagonist, if you call her that, because throughout the show she causes all the problems and left a really, really dissatisfied ending and ruined the universe for everybody. And the Dist Avengers and made Infinity Stones lame, so I'll give it a 5. And What If, honestly, just the last 3 episodes were very good. The other episodes are kind of forgettable for what they are. The Marvel Zombies was a bit disappointing too, just for the fact it didn't go as crazy as it did in the comic books. But it was just too friendly. Some of the episodes were very filler, and it was just like eh. So I'll give it a 6. And Hawkeye was, I would say, decent. Again, the main criticism people would have is definitely Hawkeye not being the main character, but I get it. It's more of a setup towards a new character. I believe her name was what was it? Bishop or
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop. Thank you. It's more of a setup for the Young Avengers, so for what it is, it was great. Kingpin was, it was fun. I liked the performance, but then again, Berman, you can always, like you said before, you can watch his actions in Daredevil if you want to see more of him. So I'll give it a 5. Moon Knight was definitely one of my favorites. The most emotionally charged episode and the most kind of, well, I wouldn't say realistic, but very like a decent representation of what kind of have, I guess, dramatic representation of what kind of illness you could probably have, being like schizophrenic or whatever his condition was. It was very gory. It was a nice story, but it felt very rushed towards the end due to the lack of episodes. So hopefully, it gets a season 2. And the Werewolf by Night special was also very good, just due to the fact that it was just a very similar like old school kind of vibe. There's many like throwbacks and shots of like horror movies that were made back in like the 70s or the 50s or what have you. It was fun. It was definitely the most fun projects I saw. And then Guardians of the Mixes, it was, for what it is, it was decent. I liked it. It was mostly okay, so I'll just give it like a 7 for what it is. It was fun, nice special just for the family, and that's pretty much it for me.
All right, everybody. That is our TV series review. Sorry if we didn't go too in depth there for y'all, but again, if y'all have seen the series, then you already know exactly what we're talking about on almost everything here, if I'm being quite honest. So now we dive into the movies with this phase. Kind of a controversial topic, if I say so myself. There were a lot of these movies that a lot of people did not like at all, and that is understandable. But I will say this. I thought some of these movies hit, and some of these did indeed miss. Which ones hit and which ones missed? Well, let's find out. We begin with Black Widow. Now, this movie isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, and this movie does feel kind of like a cliche MCU movies in some ways, and that is kind of undeniable. However, when I look at the whole movie from start to finish, it was enjoyable. That's what I'll say. It was enjoyable. It wasn't the most complex film. It's a pretty easy popcorn film. But, you got interesting characters involved like Yelena. And I guess the story, you could say, it was decent. It wasn't anything too crazy. I feel like this movie would have aged better with people if it came out in 2017 rather than in 2021. But I guess that's a whole nother discussion. And the reason why I say that is because it takes place in between Civil War and Infinity War. And so I feel like the movie would have mattered more if it kind of had that emotional weight behind it in a way, but it just didn't. So I don't know. I feel like it didn't completely hit, but I will say it was an enjoyable film. It was a fun film, and I did like it. So yeah, I can't really say too much beyond that. Overall, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Black Widow, I watched it in theaters. It was not that bad. I liked how they explored the background on Black Widow with the Red Guardian and his wife. I kind of like how they did it. I think it was good. Elena was fun to watch. I liked the main kind of villain, well, kind of half villain, the Taskmaster idea. I wanted to see more of him. Well, it's she. It's actually a she under there. It's weird because in comics it's actually a he. But even if I think Black Widow is great, I think it's a good movie to watch. Nice popcorn film, definitely what Danny said. I think they did a good job on how they expressed Black Widow's like intentions with her family and stuff. So definitely I say 7 for me.
I'll agree with that. I feel like whenever it came down to Hawkeye, using Yelena, it kind of wasted it. Like
Yeah,
with the whole final battle in Hawkeye between Hawkeye and Yelena's just like, okay, I forgive you. Like, I'm sorry, I just can't care. I can't be asked.
exactly.
Um, but yeah. So moving on to Shang-Chi. Woo. Okay. Is this a complex film in terms of its story? No, but it's a badass film, and I think it's fantastic. The fight choreography is some of the best fighting choreography in any Marvel film to date. Whether it's with some of the little karate that's used throughout the first and second acts, and a lot of the you know locations involved in this film, the settings, I guess you could call it, were quite fascinating as well. And each setting was kind of different that from each other, and it set the tone that the movie was aiming for. And I feel like the movie did really well with that. The acting is really nice as well. The little like train scene in the beginning is just such a great way to kick off the film, and it really like gets you you know I guess seatbelted in for what you're going for here. It's just a fantastic ride. It's nothing too crazy, but it has emotions. It has a really good story. Nothing too unpredictable, but it's a really good story. This movie's just a whole lot of fun, and when it comes down to the flaws of this film, they're very minor and there are very few. So overall, I'm gonna have to give this film a 9.5 out of 10. It is probably in my top 10 Marvel Cinematic Universe films to date. I actually adore this film. Quite simply, I really like all the characters. I really like the final battle and how it really, used all the build up and emotional weight behind it to deliver in that final battle. I really just appreciate the friendship between Shang-Chi and, his friend along the way.
Katie.
Overall, just a fantastic film. I've seen it multiple times. I don't have a problem with watching it over and over again because it's just an amazing film to me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love the Shang-Chi. They did a great job on 100% of the fight scenes. Every fight scene they had in the fight club, on the train, on the ocean, on the lake, at their home. Like every fight scene, they were so good, and the comedy was pretty good, well timed there with his friends. And I liked it that they brought back the fake Mandarin. I don't know his real name, but I just can't remember his. It was the fake Mandarin from Iron Man 3. Yeah,
Yeah, it
and
was
it was funny.
jab for Iron Man 3 for sure.
Yeah, I did love it. I think that was a funny character. It's a very funny character to put in there, but I like how they did Shang-Chi character. He worked perfectly from the comics, from in real into the main thing, and the real Mandarin. I have a little problem just because of how the 10 rings worked. Because 10 rings, I know more, is the ones that you put on your fingers, not the ones that you just put on your arms. But I think it's perfectly fine. I think they did a great job on the main villain. Kind of, well, there's two main villains really, but main thing is a shadow monster. But I think they did a great job. The main fight at the end was amazing. I think they did a great job. I loved how the in the anime in the CGI with the dragons and monster stuff worked amazing. I think they did a great job. So 100% for me, one of my favorites from this series. Shang-Chi definitely a 9.5 for me.
Yep, I'll give it an 8. I didn't have much problems with the movie. In fact, the only criticism I can have, but that's just my personal taste, is like the movie at first was kind of grounded. It was more of an old school kind of kung fu style movie, and I haven't seen those kind of movies in years. But once it kind of got to like the mystic arts part of, like towards the end of the half, it kind of felt like a little meh. I was kind of over it. I was like, oh, I kind of liked how the movie at first was just grounded. It was more about Shang-Chi and his struggles with his father. And I actually will give points to the father because he was actually a villain. I understood why what he was doing. He lost his daughter and then his presumed wife, and he just was just a man who lost everything. So it's kind of relatable what he was going through. And overall, it's a decent film. I'm gonna give it an 8. It's simple as that.
All right, next we go to the Eternals. Right now, these two are gonna have more of a negative review than I have, so I'm gonna be quick here and let them tear this to shreds. So, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I'm just indifferent. Now, yeah, this is straight up mid, and that's kind of an abused word, mid, but it's true for this movie. It is mid. I feel like this would have worked better as a Disney Plus series rather than a movie. Now, it has a nice cast, but the majority of the characters in this film have rushed arcs and have bleak motivations. So it just gives off a bleak story. And some of these characters, if written well, could be great or really cool because there's a lot of potential in spread throughout the film for a lot of characters, but that potential is just never realized for any of them, and not a single one. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing. And we have these moments where that can easily confuse the audience at any time by showing us flashbacks with barely any explanation behind them. It just kind of leaves this film to be quite openly confusing to most people. I mean, I understood what was going on, but if you're kind of like, if you're not a geek, you're probably not going to get what's going on. That's all I can really tell you here. So, yeah, I don't mean to be too harsh on it. It's just like this movie really just should have been a series. These characters should have been explored more, and we should have been given a reason to care about these characters, but instead, we don't. And we're introduced to these Celestials, but the whole thing about it is I feel like we're introducing them at the wrong time because there's just so much already going on in the MCU. So where will they even fit into all of this? This movie is a movie I feel like that should have been saved for years from now, but we're just throwing it out now just for the case of, just for the sake of having something new. But I don't know. I don't really know. Again, it's not a terrible movie. There's nothing offensive in my opinion, but I just think it's very right down the middle kind of shit. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Nothing too bad, but nothing too good either. There are a few shots in the film that are quite visually amazing and impressive, and there are a few scenes that quite frankly have my attention. The last 30 minutes of the film are quite impressive, but that's really all I could really say on it.
Yeah, you probably got to that point. But so first, when I watched the trailer, I was like, "Oh, good! It looks good." Actually, this could have been a pretty good movie if they did better choices. This movie is complete shit to me. It's pretty much what Danny says. That 30 minutes at the end, there were some good, good showings of the Eternal, no, Celestials in the air. The fight scenes were great, but the whole entire movie was just a downhill slope. It was shit the whole entire way. The plot was just way too confusing. To me, they had three different villains. They had Icarus, the Celestials, and they had the guy Crow, which to me, and 100%ly, he should have been the main villain. Crow should have been the main villain. What should have happened was he took two guys' power, then maybe at the middle, he took Icarus's power, and it would have been a better fight scene. It would have been so much cooler, but they just made it more shitty to me. The plot just didn't catch anything. I couldn't understand anything closely to it. It was really complete shit. There's nothing before those 30 minutes at the end that kind of redeemed that stuff. That just didn't look good. Some of these they could have done a series on Disney Plus, 100%. They just don't. They could have done, but it's so stupid. I think they did that. I didn't. It was just too dumb to me. I couldn't feel happy with watching this movie. There's so many great actresses too, but they used every single one of them complete shit, pretty much. And I don't think they did a good job. And that's why I really do not like this movie. If they just could have made better choices and made the whole villain for this whole entire movie, Crow, the main deviant, that could have been an amazing movie. But it completely went downhill and went complete shit. So definitely for me, I'm being nice for this one for 4. I'm doing 4 out of 10 for me.
And yeah, I'm with you too, Bourbon, because honestly, this was like the worst thing I've ever watched this entire year. And just quite frankly, it's the pacing of the movie. Like, even though in this plot of this movie, the world is pretty much at a destruction pace, it seems like whoever like filmed this movie was kind of like obsessed with like mostly the character development, which is fine and all. You do need that. But when you have like 6 to 8 people I don't care about, and I just like, why? It was just honestly a drag just to watch all these characters in Iraq and Icarus just turning face. I know, haha. He like at the very end or whatever, which is like it made absolute no sense. The main guy, Crow, was pretty cool. He was like the only like redeemable thing about this movie, but he pretty much just dies halfway, and I'm like, okay, there's like no point. And honestly, all the heroes were pretty much equally matched, so I never felt like there was much of like a danger for any of these characters because from one moment they could be dead or whatever and just come back randomly. Like it just wasn't consistently. The only cool thing at the end was the introduction of maybe I think it was like Thor's like son. I could be wrong, or it's like Hercules or something like that that gets revealed towards the end credits, and also a tease of Blade coming soon. And before we move along, funny thing is Becky Lynch was actually supposed to be introduced in this movie. It was confirmed that she was supposed to be like an end credits person, but because this movie did so poorly and terrible, she's no longer part of it. So hopefully she's like part of the
Wait,
MCU.
Becky,
Yep, that's a real thing. I did not make that up. I learned about that recently. She had a shot for shot end credit scene with this movie, but because it was so bad, they just like, nah, we're not doing it.
hey yo, what the fuck?
That is a
Becky
real
Lynch?
thing. Look it up. I'm not joking. This movie sucks. I'm giving it a
Dude.
3.
Dude, the movie would have been better with her in it though.
No, it would have been shit.
No, why? You don't think Becky can act?
Becky's a great actor. I'm just saying this movie's shitty.
Fair enough. Okay. Now we move on to Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this is what I'll say. A lot of people like to come up with the same kind of review. It's a good film and all, but it just kind of relies on nostalgia. I'm sorry. I guess you must have been ignoring the story that they were giving Tom Holland Spider-Man from start to finish. So, what do I mean by that? Tom's whole story, if you've been watching all of his movies involved in the MCU, is that being Spider-Man, being who he is a great responsibility. And him being the young teenager that he doesn't know how to handle that. Because there are times where you see in the trilogy where he just wants to be a normal teenager, but he's not a normal teenager. And then he also had that close relationship with Iron Man, but Iron Man died, and a lot of build up, basically. A lot of build up to, for Spider-Man to finally become Spider-Man. And in this film, Aunt May died, and it kind of struck him in a way where all he was thinking about was revenge. But so it was through this movie where he truly learned what the responsibility of being Spider-Man actually is. And it was with the help of 2 people who have already been through that experience in their lives. Tobey Spider-Man and Andrew Spider-Man. Tobey Spider-Man through the death of Uncle Ben in the first movie, and Andrew through the death of his love, Gwen, in the second movie. And through all of it, Tom finally realized what it took, what he had to do with his power and responsibility, and to protect those who he loved, like Ned, MJ. He had to make sure they forgot his entire existence. And sure, maybe that might seem a bit excessive, But when you really narrow it down, it's not. It's actually saving them from all the villains that Spider-Man will encounter in the future. Their lives are completely safe and peaceful, and they can go on to meet other best friends and other partners, that isn't Peter Parker. And yeah, it's a sad and unfortunate ending, that Peter can no longer live the life he used to have. But, it also teaches a beautiful lesson about, how you really have to handle that power. And sure, it's an unrealistic scenario, I guess you could say, of, being able to reverse the ability of everyone knowing who you are. But it's a great lesson at the end of the day about, what it takes in terms of trying to keep everyone you know and love safe as a hero. This isn't just about, being a hero. This is about being Spider-Man. Overall, I gotta say, this is the most Spider-Man movie I've ever seen out of the live action films. Into the Spider-Verse is the most Spider-Man film in terms of, what the character is. But if you're thinking about the meaning behind the character, that goes to No Way Home. And there you got a show-stealing performance from William Dafoe as Green Goblin. If you thought he was great in 2002, he came back and topped it. And everyone else, not everyone else, but Doc Ock and, Electro come back, and they have great performances as well. And I don't know what happened with Sandman, but I guess they couldn't get the real guy back, so they reused scenes from Spider-Man 3. A bit disappointing on that, but it is what it is. I guess you could say. They were still able to tell a story that was just perfect, and I wouldn't change anything about this film. You have the moment of Andrew getting his redemption, from letting Gwen die by saving MJ in the final battle, and that was just so satisfying. And you could say Toby may have not had the biggest role of all three, but he was there out of everyone the most in the end. When Tom was about to stab Green Goblin, Toby, the first Spider-Man who had to deal with Green Goblin, was the one who saved him. And Green Goblin stabbed him. But what that showed was that Toby, no matter what consequences happened to the Toby Spider-Man, he was willing to accept it just to simply be the hero. And that's what being Spider-Man is all about. So Toby, you can argue, didn't have that big of a role, but he kind of brought the message home, if you really think about it. So overall, I think the story that it told was just perfect. A more emotional movie for the MCU, probably the most emotional movie for the MCU. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, man. It is a masterpiece, and it just felt like such a huge spectacle, when all of this was going down, because this was a dream movie for many people, myself included. And the fact that this movie just even happened alone is worthy of a 9 out of 10 by itself, but it's the fact that they nailed everything I could have dreamed of makes this a 10 out of 10 for me. And the cameo with Venom in the end, funny stuff, really funny stuff. No complaints at all for me.
Yeah, I want. It was so amazing to me. I loved how they brought all three Spider-Men together. You told me require one. I forgot the other guy's name. Oh, whatever. The first Amazing Spider-Man, and the Spider-Man, Tom Holland, all together. I loved how they all interacted, and we're in their science lab, and because Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man can shoot webs from his wrist, doesn't need a web shooter, but the other two needs it, and I just love that scene. It was a very nice, funny, humble scene there, talking to each other, talking about their universes, and the villains were perfect. Most of those villains were very great. I think Dr. Octopus was the great one too. I did love and William Dafoe one was very good too. I did love a lot of these characters. And Doctor Strange was a nice, interesting point there, fight with Doctor Strange versus Spider-Man. That was a good fight too, how you just use science or math to defeat Doctor Strange. It was pretty good, I like that. So this whole thing, I think they did a great job. And I can't say anything more than Danny said. It was a big thing for how I loved all three Spider-Mans. And mainly the Tobey Maguire is one of my favorites. So definitely 100%, 10 out of 10. I will watch this anytime I can.
It's pizza time. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just too good, man. You guys already made all the good points that needed to be said. There's nothing more I can add to it. It was great. I got everything I wanted. It was just a fan favorite from like the OG movies to everything until now. It was just absolute perfection. 10 out of 10.
Simple as that, y'all. Now, this next film, we're not going to agree on as much. Oh, brother.
You just don't understand because you're on a mob.
Okay. Doctor Strange. Multiverse of Midness. And mid, I will admit, calling it mid is actually a compliment for how shitty this film is. What do I mean? Let me explain. So, this film is garbage. Just Doctor Strange is unlikable. Wanda's villainous motivations barely make sense. She's willing to kill a 12-year-old child over made-up fictional children that she made up in her head aren't even real. I can make up kids in my fucking head. Am I going to kill a fucking 12-year-old child over some made-up children that I put into my fucking head? No, it is ridiculously stupid. And what is this movie called? Multiverse of Madness. There were maybe 10 seconds of multiverses shown from start to fucking finish, and this is 3 hours of time. Waste of fucking air is this movie. $200 million, and for what? And for it to look like shit. This film literally looks worse than films that literally only have $20 million put into it. It looks like shit. It looks fucking embarrassing. The 3-eye CGI looks horrible. Absolutely horrible. And the fact that that actually went into the final product is embarrassing for a multi-billion-dollar company. Embarrassing. And just the fucking... The utilization of Evil Strange, cool, fine, but it was a waste! It was a waste. Wanda was just a stupid character in this film from start to finish. And with everything that happened in WandaVision, there's no Vision, there is no Mephisto, there's no Agatha, they barely utilize anything that sets up to this film. It literally makes zero sense for this film to come after No Way Home, which, by the way, wasn't the plan. This film was supposed to come out before No Way Home, but it didn't because the company is that incompetent of putting their scheduling together. Elizabeth Olsen is an amazing actress, but I feel like I feel like this isn't her best performance. That is what I could say on that. I could say the same about Benedict Cumberbatch and Sam Raimi. I love Sam Raimi. I love Ash vs. the Evil Dead. I love the Spider-Man trilogy. But he decided to go ahead and use the same transitions that he used in those films. In 2022, this film looks like shit. Shit. How can this film be from a multi-billion-dollar company when it looks as bad as it does? This is one of the worst MCU films ever across all 4 phases. This is garbage. 2 out of 10.
Jesus, alright.
Holy
I'm not gonna
shit.
be any bad. I like this film. This is fun. It was a fun film to me because I liked how they did this Doctor Strange. The Evil Stranger's freaking great. The Zombie Strange, which is pretty much my favorite part, and I know Chris's favorite part too, is Zombie Strange at the end. The Scarlet Witch turning evil. That was kind of I know, like, it's kind of stupid a little bit that she was wanting to pretty much just kill like a girl for her own made up children, but hell, I think it was still good how she was just so evil, killing. She killed Black Bolt. She killed Miss Captain America. She killed what's it called? Captain Marvel, Professor X, and I think there was another one maybe. But she killed it like brutally, and I think they did a great job on showing some of the multiverse. Not very much, The side character, American Chavez, I think I do like her. I can't wait to see more of her. Probably she's the one of the young Avengers that will pop up, and I want to see more of her a little bit more. And I think they did a great job on the fight scenes. Most fight scenes have been doing great, like simple magic or simple movements that were pretty great. And I think they did a great job on showing this. And it's not like 10 out of 10, but I still feel like it's up there as like a good movie to watch for a Marvel movie that is pretty gory at the same time. So for me, I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
And I won't say there aren't problems with the film, Daniel, because it's not perfect. I mean, again, I guess the main issue I had is with Martinez, or I think that's her name, like American Martinez or something like
America Chavez.
that. American
Yeah,
Chavez.
trash character.
Cool.
Boring fucking character.
I'll give you that because mostly throughout the movie she was just mostly used as a prop. Like she didn't have any character growth, and to be fair, she wasn't. Even though she was like the most important thing driving the entire plot, it was just kind of like, eh. I mean, Wanda, whole motivation. Like I understand where she's coming from, but you don't need to kill a 12-year-old child just to accomplish what you're literally a goddess who can like just make things on the top of your head. So I'll give you that too, Daniel. It was very dumb, but was it the worst thing I saw? No, it's not. That's definitely going to the next movie when we're discussing this. But for what it is, I do enjoy the zombie aspect of it. It was cool. People were giving it a shit, but that just gives me the open possibilities that we'll get a Marvel Zombies project, and hopefully to do it correctly. It was just fun. It was nothing harmful at all with this movie. It was just for what it is. It's okay. I'll just give it a 6.
I will say it was harmful to one thing. My time.
No, that's the next movie, dude.
2.5 hours. 2.5 hours for what?
For fun.
What did this set up for?
Nothing.
Like,
but we watched Eternals, goddammit, and that was a bigger waste of time.
at least that shit like set up for like future projects. Like this set up for nothing. But anyways, if you all want to go watch a real movie about multiverses and a movie that actually has a great story, Everything Everywhere All at Once came out 1 month before it, and it destroys this film to shreds. So go watch that, please. Highly, highly, highly recommended. Now we're moving on to the next film. Thor, Love, and Thunder. Oh boy. This is bad. This film is bad. Yeah, trash followed up by a bad film. Not good. So, the comedy in this film might be some of the worst comedy the MCU has ever done. And that's saying something because this company has been very capable of garbage comedy. And Thor just looks like an absolute idiot in this film. And I understand he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's not supposed to be. But holy fuck is he dumb in this film. That's really all I could leave it at. And I guess the story, the message they're trying to tell people through this movie is to just love in your life, and yeah, I guess adopt a random child you barely had anything to do with. Speaking of Thor and adopting the evil daughter in the end of the film, it all doesn't really make much sense. It's all over the place. It tries to be wholesome and tell a good message, but instead it's just a clunky, stupid mess. And I guess they're trying to go for more of a mythology kind of thing, as we're bringing in all these other gods, and I don't care. I just don't. So overall, 4 out of 10. I liked Gore as a villain. That's all I can really say. The movie looked impressive sometimes, but like the floating head, for example, and just a few other spots in this film, it kind of goes back to me saying, this company shouldn't be putting hundreds of millions of dollars into films that's going to look like absolute dog shit. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Only $25 million went into that film. And why do I keep mentioning that film? Because it's a way better film than every single film we're talking about in this phase. And that actually is kind of doing the same thing that Marvel's trying to do, multiverses. So yes, this film, just compared to that film, like the last film, is a waste of time. So yeah, this film really means nothing to me. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I watched. It was not that to me. There was a lot of weird crap about it. The comedy was a little bit too much comedy, but I think the only maybe the redeem two maybe redeemable things is one. I loved Gore the God Butcher. To me, he just sounded so creepy. I think there's so great sound on his like voice that just made him like sound so mean, sound brutal. And his the fights are actually pretty cool too. The fights where the fight got like the gold like bleed gold. That was a pretty interesting they put in there. I love that black and white fight that they had. It was really cool. I think they did a good job on how they did black and white fight. The ending fight was a little ridiculous with all the kids fighting. Yeah, because that's a little dumb to me. But hell, it's Thor: Love and Thunder for obvious reasons. But I think I'm okay with how they kind of ended making Thor uh, taking taking Gore's daughter because pretty much just his last wishes before he died. Is for that. I think that's kind of wholesome to me. It was a little bit too much comedy. I'm like okay with comedy, staying off the bed, but like a little too much comedy in anything. It was not a bad movie with fighting wise. The Mighty Thor with Jane Foster, she was did a good job. There was a weird. It was kind of weird how she looked. Like her costume and everything looked perfect. Didn't look too part, but hell, she died sadly. But I think it looked good. Same how she did it. It was not that bad. Valkyrie did it a little bit cooler. I think Valkyrie was interesting, but hell, it was not that bad. It was not that bad, but it was a little bit. It was too much comedy. That's the only thing I would say. So I give this a 5 for me.
And I will be civil about this, but I personally thought this was actually worse than Eternals, just for the fact. Let me get one thing straight: the whole comedy thing, it's fine for what it is, but most of these jokes weren't that funny. I mean, especially that stupid goat scream that they used like 10 times throughout the movie. I'm like, it's not funny. And also too, his little like fight scenes with his hammers was really cringe. But I really enjoyed Gore's performance. But the only issue I had is that halfway through the movie is when Thor and along with his girlfriend and Valkyrie go along, because Thor pretty much like captures all the kids in like their village or whatever. They go meet Zeus, right? And at that point, I'm just like, why couldn't the movie just been this of Thor meeting Zeus, and we could have had way better interactions? Because Zeus himself was great. He was such a dick. He was like straight up like he was in the books that they wrote about him like years and years ago. Like that alone would have been a better movie than this. And the main problem are what's her name before I continue with her? Like
Jane.
Jane Foster.
Jane Foster. Like even though she dies, quote unquote, it seemed kind of pointless because she just comes back anyway in like Valhalla, and I'm like, well, okay, well, Thor didn't learn anything, and he's just gonna go back to his old self as soon as he like discovers this. And then,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry, not to interrupt you, but
Oh,
you know what else I like to add on that was really dumb?
yo,
The fact that Thor decided to flirt with his two hammers, and he never did that in any MCU project ever before this one.
yeah. And also too, Gore was great up until like the very end. He was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna drop everything because you showed me the way." But I hate gods. But it's cool because I got to see my daughter one last time, so all is forgiven. And take care of my daughter. Okay, bye. And then overall, it was just like,
So
why?
pointless.
It was just pointless. It was dumb. I'm not gonna go further than that. It was just kind of like, eh. I'm just gonna give it like a 2.
I too. Now, the last film, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video has already seen our Black Panther review already. And thank you guys for the support on that. That's been kind of surreal. But anyways, I guess if you want to hear our thoughts on that, we all really enjoyed the film. We all gave it scores between a 7.5 and a 9. Check out that full review on our channel. Overall, I thought the review had the phase, had its ups and downs. But when it was up, it was really up. And when it was down, it was really down. So I guess you could say this was mostly a mixed bag. Overall, what did you two think of Phase 4?
it was very definitely, I would call it a mixed bag. There was a lot of failures, like three failures. Everything else was pretty okay.
Yeah, and honestly, for what it's worth, I kind of give like the shows the upper hand. I thought they were better than the movies, so yeah, that's all I can really say about this phase of the MCU. Hopefully, do better for the next one.
Agreed. Any final thoughts you two have before we exit out here?
No,
Nah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I've been Daniel,
I've been Berman.
Chris again.
and we'll see you all in the next one.